Our project was Drinking at Home Incorporations with Colby McWilliams, Cameron Haynes, Logan Browning, and David Larger. Drink at Home Incorporations has created a non-alcoholic drink mixed for the consumption of mixed drinks at home. They're looking to introduce a new pina colada mix to the market, but really weren't sure what route they wanted to take to make the most profit. The four options were a 12-month program introducing pina colada mix, 8-month reduced research program to see if competitions arise, and if not, 4-month crash program, 6 months reduced research project to see if anybody develops similar products, or do nothing.
Now we come to our pros and cons of the project. For option 1, the pros for it is the most potential profit, plus it is the least amount of steps. Now when you look at the cons, you have no room for error whatsoever, plus you're risking $100,000. Next you have the pros and cons of option 2. The pros starts off with you're risking only $80,000, plus you can stop at 8 months, plus after 8 months profits are very likely. Now when we come to look at option 6, the pros for this starts off with you're only risking $80,000 at first, plus if competition arises, you still make profit, and finally it separates by 6 million, 8 million, and 12 million. The cons for this are that there are a lot of complicated steps, plus you're only going to make $47,420 at the end of the profits. Then we come to our last option of doing nothing. So the pros for this are you're doing absolutely nothing, no steps, and you're not risking any money. Then looking at the con side, you're not making profits, no introduction of the pina coladas, and no extra business exposure. Now we come to our full overview of the decision tree. There's a lot going on in this picture, so we have to zoom in to show you guys exactly what's going on. The best way to look at this data is by creating a decision tree. To make a decision tree, you must go inside Excel QM and select decision tree. Once you have done this, now you can start branching off every step that you make for each option. If you look at all the options, you can see that all 4 options end in a different profit. One challenge that we faced during the decision tree creation was determining the total cost of each option. The reason behind our struggle was because we found ourselves adding additional costs that were included in the paragraph after given information instead of given with the data. Now we come to the actual calculation of the profits. We have to first start off by creating the substantial, moderate, and lower competition itself. Once you find the number of profit you actually make for each competition, you have to multiply by the actual probability of receiving these profits. Once you have found this overall number, next you multiply by the probability of receiving this number plus $390,000, which would be the revenue of no competition side, multiply that by 0.20. Then once you find this number, you multiply it once more by 0.80 plus negative $100,000, which would be the fail rate, times the probability, which would be 0.10. This should give you the overall profit for option 1, roughly around $128,000. Now we come to our first option of running the business normal for the first 12 months. If you succeed in the first 12 months, you will be receiving a profit of $154,000. Then on the other side, if you somehow fail, you would only be getting a $10,000 profit. Even though that's not that much, the chances of happening like this is very slim. As you can see, it's only a 10% chance of happening like this, and your success rate is actually at 90%. Once you move on after your success, you have to determine whether you have competition or no competition. As you can see, the no competition rate is obviously the way to go, but the chances of this are very low because you only have a 20% chance of receiving this. If you do somehow face no competition, your profits are very high, with over $300,000. Then if you somehow pull off another miracle, you can substantially make up to $800,000. If not substantial, you would get moderate and get $400,000 in profit. And if that doesn't work out, then you go down to the lower part, which you'd only be receiving $300,000. Next we have option 2, which is an 8-month program plus a crash test. Then just like before, you have to determine whether there is competition or no competition. If you get no competition, you will be receiving $92,000 and a little bit extra, but this is only 40% chance of happening because competition has a 60% chance of happening, but you will lose around $80,000. Once you have received success, now you must determine if there's competition or no competition again. If you do receive no competition, it's a little bit less chance of receiving this because it's $20,000, but if you do go down this path, you will receive up to $350,000 in profit. Unfortunately, if you do run into some competition, which is very high because of an 80% chance rate, you'll be only receiving around $55,000 in profit. If you do luck out again and get no competition, you can get up to $550,000, but this is a very small window because it's only a 10% chance of actually receiving this amount of money. Then your most likely option that you would be receiving is the moderate one, which is around $360,000. Then on the lower side, you'll unfortunately only make $260,000, but still a decent amount of profit. Next, we have our 6-month program option. Then we have to establish once again our competition or no competition. Even though it's a little bit hard to see, you could tell that no competition actually doesn't make as much profit as competition at the beginning. But longer down the road, no competition will definitely bring you more money. The one problem with this option is you have to have a lot of luck on your side because there's a lot of things that must go right, such as success and no competition. But if you do have competition, the most you can make is roughly around $55,000 or up to $80,000. Even with no competition, you can make up to $114,000 and escalate all the way up to $350,000, then all the way up to $560,000 as the maximum amount of profit. The last option is to do absolutely nothing. If you do this, you make no profits and you don't enter any type of business. For a real-world context, we decided to use Gerber. Gerber Baby Food decided to use the decision tree to figure out if they should continue using PVC or switch to a different product. Gerber needed to switch badly, but wanted to create the smallest interruption in their business, so they decided to make a decision tree method to create a projection of what exactly they need to do and what their options were for the future. Our next real-world context was within the medical field. The medical field uses decision trees during their testing of medication with their patients. Once the patients have received and taken the medication, they must tell the doctor the different type of symptoms they are facing. Once the patient has taken the medication, they must now talk to the doctor and tell them exactly what type of symptoms they are facing. Once the doctor has received the information from the patient on the symptoms they are facing from the medication, they will change the medication and prescription accordingly so that it will fit the patient perfectly. For certain diseases, it's actually a struggle because there's so many things that are going on with the patient. So the decision tree sometimes isn't the best option for a doctor, but also it's the most simple option. Now we explain how we received our data, our tests, and our graphs. We have received all of the data from the prompt that we are given by the Drink at Home Inc.'s situation. We were given the probability of each outcome occurring, as well as the cost and the possible profits that would result with each of the options. When it came to the testing, we used the decision tree to calculate all of our results, so the only test we had to run in order to solve our case problem was the analysis of each decision within the decision tree. Then the only graphing that we had to use was the decision tree, which we found in Excel QM. In conclusion, we finally came to the result that option 1 would be the best fit for the Drink at Home company. If it were to fail, only 10% chance of this actually happening, the Drink at Home would still lose $100,000. There is a 90% chance though that the 12-month program would be successful, which would promote to a profit of $154,000. If competition does arise though, the market would split the difference, but if the competition does not arise, then profits would be in full effect and the Drink at Home company would have an extremely successful new product. Even though the other options do look very nice, the chances of success in those other options is very low, and that's not a risk that everybody is willing to take.